I was scared of Grandma. She was weird. The blue tattoos on her hands and her face disgusted me. Devilish signs that came from a dark world. As a child, I never dared to ask about her tattoos. Only now have I realized what these strange marks meant. Only now I know that these were signs of violence and slavery. Abduction, rape, suicide, starvation, murder. We cringe when we hear such terrible words. But in 1915, these were the very things that Grandma and thousands of other Armenian women were forced to encounter every day. Until the early part of the 20th century, Armenians lived as an ethnic minority within the Ottoman Empire. As the Ottoman Empire began to decline, Armenians started to express dissatisfaction with the domestic reforms. Historically, the Armenian population has been continuously victimized. Unfortunately, under the pressures of World War I, the discriminates only got worse. The Turkish government, or the Young Turks, didn't trust the Armenians, and in fear of treason, they set out to destroy the entire population. This destruction began with the arrest and outright annihilation of Armenian men and boys by the Ottoman Turks. Women, children, and the elderly were left grief-stricken and stunned. Nonetheless, they didn't have a very long time to mourn, for shortly after the men were taken, the remaining Armenians were forcefully deported from their homes. They were led aimlessly through the mountains and deserts. This was done without the proper clothes or shoes. Rations of food and water were so rare that many lost their lives to starvation and dehydration. In addition, any Turkish man could easily take advantage of the vulnerable women and girls of the caravan, abducting them and treating them as sexual slaves. For some girls, the emotional and physical pain was too much to fight, while others simply desired resistance. Consequently, it is said that hundreds of girls drowned themselves in the Euphrates in a single day. It is suspected that the girls would cross their arms together and plunge willingly to their deaths. This was the only way of escaping the abuse and pain, and for many, they felt as if it was their best choice. Grandma was a survivor of the Armenian genocide, a survivor of deportation, abuse, and rape. Growing up, her granddaughter, Suzanne Kalandalan, hated her grandmother. She didn't know why she was so wicked and refused to show love towards anyone. As Suzanne grew older, she began to look into her grandmother's past. She slowly pieced together the reason behind her grandmother's harsh demeanor. She found out that after the murder of her father, her grandmother was abducted with her mother and younger sister by a Kurdish man. They were kept in slavery for many years, somewhere in Turkey. She was raped by this man often. The first time she was raped, she was 12. Grandma was forcibly marked, tattooed as property, in the same way that farmers brand their cattle. Many women and children who were abducted during the genocide were tattooed. These tattoos were often Turkish signs and symbols, such as the Turkish flag. These new markings represented the new life that the Armenian women were being forced to live. Sadly, Grandma's story is not unique. The story of those who didn't die, the story of young women who survived, is hardly ever told. The suffering of women during the Armenian genocide is commonly kept secret inside Armenian families for generations. Women suffer in silence for the remainder of their lives because they are ashamed for being raped and violated. In fear of bringing embarrassment to their family, women suffer in darkness. The tattoos left on many women's hands and faces represented the removal of their identity. Every day, many years after the genocide, these women are reminded of the terrible things that they have been through. Their torture gave them low self-worth and feelings of being unclean, worthless, and dishonored. Many refuse intimate contact with the members of their family. Women were never given a reason for the crimes committed against them, so in the silence of their separation from the world, they begin to see themselves at fault.